Imagine falling asleep and waking up knowing things you were never taught. Imagine predicting the future, diagnosing strangers you've never met, and describing places you've never seen, all while completely unconscious. This isn't a science fiction plot. This is the real story of a quiet American man who, for decades, baffled doctors, scientists, believers, and skeptics alike. He was a man who claimed that when he slept, a greater mind spoke through him. His name was Edgar Cayce, and whether you believe in prophecy or not, his life remains one of the most extraordinary and compelling mysteries of the 20th century. Edgar Cayce wasn't born a mystic, a healer, or a prophet. He was born on a small farm in Kentucky in 1877. By all accounts, he was shy, soft-spoken, deeply religious, and painfully ordinary. There were no early signs of greatness, no strange powers, no supernatural halo around him. He was just a simple farm boy. Yet, even from childhood, there was something different. He said he could speak with friends that no one else could see. His parents naturally dismissed it as a child's active imagination, but the signs were there, quietly marking the unusual path he would later be forced to walk. Edgar's life changed forever at the age of 23. One morning, he woke up and had lost his voice completely. It wasn't just a sore throat. He could barely manage a whisper. Doctors tried everything they could think of, but nothing worked. For months, he lived in silence, forced to leave his job as a salesman, unable to communicate. Then, a traveling stage hypnotist came through town. Desperate and out of options, Edgar agreed to try hypnosis, just once. What happened next stunned everyone in the room. Under the hypnotic trance, Edgar's voice returned, but not as a weak whisper. It came back strong, confident, and with perfect clarity. And then, something impossible happened. Still asleep, he began to diagnose himself. He described the condition of his own vocal cords using complex medical terminology that he, a man with only an 8th-grade education, had never studied. Then, he prescribed his own treatment, a bizarre combination of suggestions and physical adjustments. When he woke up, he couldn't remember a single thing he had said, but the treatment worked. His voice was back. The local doctors had no explanation, and Edgar Cayce slowly began to realize something he never wanted to admit. When he slept, he became someone else. Word of the sleeping healer spread like wildfire. People started traveling for miles to see him. Edgar was terrified. He refused to take any payment. He didn't want fame, money, or glory. He was haunted by the fear of being a fraud, terrified of misleading others with what he felt he couldn't control or understand. He just wanted a normal life. But the readings, as people started to call them, continued. The requests for help became impossible to ignore. During these trances, he diagnosed diseases he had never heard of, using medical terms he had never learned. He could describe a person's internal organs with the precision of a surgeon, as if he were operating with his eyes closed, and in a way, he was, because every single reading happened while he was completely unconscious. Doctors began attending the sessions. Some left shaking their heads, still skeptical, but many others left speechless, unable to explain what they had just witnessed. They had seen a man with no medical training outperform their own diagnostic abilities, time and time again. But perhaps the most disturbing part, especially for a devout Christian man like Edgar, was this case didn't just diagnose the body. The voice speaking through him began to talk about lives the person had lived before. It spoke of reincarnation, of karma, of ancient forgotten civilizations. It described a universal consciousness, a river of knowledge that connected all living things. This was a farm boy from Kentucky who had barely finished school, speaking with authority on metaphysics, spiritual laws, and the lost continent of Atlantis, as if he were reading from a forgotten cosmic library. As the years went on, the scope of the readings expanded. Cayce made hundreds of predictions about the future, some of them vague, but others were painfully and shockingly precise. A few of the predictions that shook the world included the great stock market collapse of 1929. Months before, Black Tuesday plunged the global economy into chaos. A reading warned that financial markets would fall into utter disarray. He also predicted the deaths of 2 American presidents in office, Franklin D. Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy, under strange and sudden circumstances. In 1935, long before the world was on a war footing, he said that Germany would rise again, driven by a dark force, and that another global conflict was inevitable if nations ignored the signs of hatred and division. They did ignore the signs, and World War II followed, just as he had foreseen. Now, not all his predictions came true, but enough of them did that even the most hardened skeptics were forced to ask, was this man truly seeing the future? Or was he tapping into something else entirely? The readings took a heavy toll on him. Every session left him physically and emotionally drained. Doctors warned him point blank, if you continue doing these readings, it will kill you. But people kept coming. They needed help. They traveled by train, by carriage, and sometimes by foot, thousands of them. Edgar saw the sick, the desperate, the heartbroken, and the forgotten. He believed it was his spiritual duty to help them, even if it cost him his own health, and ultimately, it cost him everything. In early 1945, exhausted beyond recovery from giving multiple readings a day, Edgar Cayce gave his final reading for himself. He lay down on his couch, entered his trance, and announced that his body was beyond repair. He died soon after at the age of 67. Some say his body simply gave out from the strain. Others believe that the voice, the source of his information, finally stopped speaking. Today, the Edgar Cayce archive holds more than 14,000 meticulously transcribed readings, covering everything from health and medicine to spirituality and prophecy. Scientists still debate his abilities. Doctors still study his medical case files, amazed by their accuracy. Believers still quote his spiritual insights, and skeptics still challenge every claim. But one truth remains undeniable. Edgar Cayce never asked to be a prophet. He never wanted worship or fame. He was a simple, humble man who just wanted to help people, even if he had to do it in his sleep. Whether he was a true mystic, a visionary, or simply a man who unlocked an undiscovered ability of the human mind, the mystery of Edgar Cayce is far from solved. And perhaps the greatest question isn't whether his prophecies were real. It's this: what is the human mind truly capable of when it dreams? Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more explorations into the unknown.